In the second year of a war that would reshape the ancient world, a far more silent and devastating force entered the city of Athens. It did not arrive with armies or banners. It moved through crowded streets, slipped past fortified walls, and settled into homes already strained by fear and scarcity. Within months, one of the most powerful city-states in the Mediterranean began to unravel, not from military defeat, but from a crisis it could neither understand nor control. By 430 BC, Athens stood at the height of its influence. Under the leadership of Pericles, it had built a formidable naval empire and established itself as a cultural and political center of the Greek world. Yet this dominance had drawn it into a prolonged conflict with its rival, Sparta, in what is now known as the Peloponnesian War. As Spartan forces advanced through Attica, Athens adopted a defensive strategy. Its population retreated behind the city's lone walls, relying on naval strength and imported supplies to endure the siege. This decision, while strategically sound, created conditions that would prove catastrophic. The sudden influx of rural populations into the already dense urban space led to overcrowding on an unprecedented scale. Temporary shelters filled every available open area. Sanitation systems, never designed for such numbers, began to fail. Clean water became difficult to access. The city, once a symbol of order and civic pride, turned into a tightly packed environment where disease could spread rapidly. It was in this setting that the plague emerged. The earliest detailed account comes from Thucydides, an Athenian general and historian who both witnessed and survived the outbreak. His description remains one of the most significant primary sources for understanding the event. He noted that the disease appeared suddenly, first affecting the port of Piraeus before moving inward to Athens itself. Given the city's reliance on maritime trade, it is widely believed that the illness arrived via infected individuals or contaminated goods from abroad, possibly originating in regions south of Egypt or in the Near East. The symptoms described by Thucydides were severe and varied. Individuals initially experienced high fevers, inflammation of the eyes, and internal heat. This was followed by persistent coughing, gastrointestinal distress, and extreme fatigue. Many suffered from an unquenchable thirst, leading them to seek water constantly. In some cases, survivors were left with lasting impairments, including memory loss or damage to extremities. While modern scholars have proposed possible explanations, including typhoid fever, smallpox, or viral hemorrhagic fevers, the exact cause remains uncertain. What is clear is the speed and scale of the outbreak. Athens, already under pressure from war, was unprepared for a public health crisis of this magnitude. Medical knowledge in ancient Greece, though advanced in certain respects, lacked the understanding of contagion necessary to contain such a disease. Physicians were among the first to die, as they came into close contact with the infected. Traditional remedies proved ineffective. Religious rituals offered no relief. As the death toll rose, the structures that held Athenian society together began to weaken. Families were overwhelmed. With so many falling ill at once, there were too few able to care for the sick. In many cases, individuals were left unattended, their condition deteriorating without support. Burial practices, deeply rooted in religious and cultural traditions, could no longer be maintained. Bodies accumulated faster than they could be properly interred. Thucydides describes instances where existing funeral pyres were reused, and where individuals, driven by necessity rather than custom, abandoned established rites. The psychological impact was equally profound. As the plague continued, a sense of order gave way to uncertainty. Laws and social norms, which depended on collective adherence, began to erode. Some Athenians, believing that death was imminent regardless of behavior, abandoned long-held values. Wealth was spent without restraint. Obligations to the state and to one another were neglected. This shift was not universal, but it was significant enough to alter the character of the city during this period. Religious belief also faced a crisis. Temples, once seen as places of protection, became sites where the sick gathered, often with tragic results. The apparent inability of the gods to prevent or halt the disease led some to question traditional interpretations of divine influence. Oracles and prophecies were revisited, but offered little clarity. In a society where religion was deeply intertwined with daily life and governance, this loss of confidence had lasting implications. The political consequences were immediate. Pericles, who had guided Athens through the early stages of the war, saw his position challenged as the crisis deepened. Criticism of his strategy intensified, particularly the decision to concentrate the population within the city walls. Although he was briefly removed from power and fined, he was later reinstated. However, he too succumbed to the plague in 429 BC. His death marked a turning point. Without his leadership, Athens struggled to maintain a consistent and effective policy during the ongoing conflict. The loss of experienced leaders extended beyond Pericles. Military commanders, administrators, and civic officials were among those affected. This created gaps in governance and reduced the city's ability to respond cohesively. Decision-making became more fragmented, and internal divisions grew more pronounced. Economically, the impact was severe. Trade routes were disrupted, not only by the war but by the fear of contagion. Labor shortages affected agriculture and craftsmanship. The influx of refugees had already strained resources. The plague intensified these pressures. As productivity declined and demand remained high, the balance that sustained the city's economy became increasingly difficult to maintain. Despite these challenges, Athens did not collapse entirely. The city continued to function, adapting where possible. Over time, the initial wave of the plague subsided, though subsequent outbreaks are believed to have occurred in later years. Survivors, including Thucydides, noted that those who recovered often gained some form of immunity, allowing them to care for others with reduced risk. Yet the long-term effects were unmistakable. The plague weakened Athens at a critical moment in the Peloponnesian War. While it did not directly determine the outcome of the conflict, it significantly reduced the city's resilience. Military campaigns became more difficult to sustain. Morale declined. Strategic opportunities were missed or mishandled. Over the following decades, Athens would face a series of setbacks, eventually culminating in its defeat by Sparta in 404 BC. Historians continue to debate the extent to which the plague influenced this outcome. Some argue that Athens, even without the disease, faced structural challenges that would have led to its decline. Others suggest that the timing and severity of the outbreak disrupted a critical phase of the war, altering its trajectory in ways that cannot be fully measured. What remains certain is the broader significance of the event. The Athenian plague stands as one of the earliest recorded epidemics in human history, documented with a level of detail that allows for ongoing analysis. It highlights the vulnerability of even the most advanced societies to forces beyond their control. It underscores the importance of public health infrastructure, social cohesion, and effective leadership in times of crisis. It also offers insight into human behavior under extreme conditions. The responses observed in Athens, fear, adaptation, resilience, and at times, breakdown, are not unique to that moment. They reflect patterns that have appeared in different forms throughout history. The tension between individual survival and collective responsibility, the search for meaning in the face of uncertainty, and the challenge of maintaining order during disruption are themes that continue to resonate. In the end, the plague did not simply pass through Athens, it changed it. The city that emerged from the crisis was not the same as the one that had entered it. Its population had been reduced, its leadership altered, and its confidence shaken. The cultural and intellectual achievements that would later define Athens were shaped, in part, by the experiences of this period. The account left by Thucydides was not intended as a narrative of despair, but as a record for the future. He wrote with the expectation that events of a similar nature might occur again, and that a clear understanding of what had happened could prove valuable. More than 2 millennia later, that intention endures. The Athenian plague remains a case study in how quickly circumstances can shift, how interconnected systems can falter, and how societies respond when faced with challenges that defy existing knowledge. It is not remembered for spectacle or singular moments, but for its sustained and pervasive impact. A city at the height of its power encountered a crisis that exposed its limits. And in that confrontation, the course of its history was permanently altered.